Okay, so welcome to this week's episode of the Python People podcast. And this week I'm very, very lucky, feeling very festive and very lucky to be joined by Tiago Pereira. So Tiago, thank you very much for being here with us today. Tiago, for those people that don't know you, you're a data science manager for Sia Partners, aren't you?
And,
correct. We had a chat quite recently, and sort of got to know each other a bit better, and we felt that there was quite an interesting conversation topic to discuss for a podcast. And maybe a lot of people might not know, as much as you're a data science manager now, you up until 2018 in your career, you're actually in a different walk of life, different industry in mechanical engineering. So we thought it would be worthwhile just getting together, chewing the fat, and having a bit of chat about what that journey's been like, for you entering into the world of data science from a kind of a non-computer science or non-data sort of background, just sort of go through all the goods and the bads and see what can be taken from it. So so do you want to start by giving us a bit of your background and your kind of career synopsis?
Yeah, sure. So I think that since early in my life, I knew I wanted to solve problems, and mechanical engineer always faced as a discipline where I could learn a lot on different fields and learn how things work and to solve these problems. So I was always fascinated on how everything works, the insides of every process and every machine. And I liked to dismount everything and put it up together again. Sometimes some pieces were missing, but still worked. So it was fascinating for me. So since early I knew this, and I was always going towards that. I went to university to study it. And there was a point in the university where I had to choose between energy field and the robotics and systems field. So these are two variants in the university where I studied. And at that point, I was faced with a major decision because I reckoned already that I really loved a lot the part of robotics and systems, how this automation worked. So this next step that we are in now works. But I also loved a lot about the energy, so renewable energies, combustion, thermics. So all about that I also liked a lot. So my choice there was basically based on what I thought I could learn by myself later and what I would not be motivated to learn. So I went to energy because of that, actually. Because I knew that I would be dragged to the coding part later on, and I'll learn how to code and how to implement systems there. So when university ended, I thought, okay, let's give it a go at our work environment, and I started as a design engineer at Siemens, actually designing power transformers, so something that is related with electricity. And then I was designing a mechanical part there. Then I shifted to the oil industry, designing equipment for rigs and drill ships. And finally, on my career on engineering, I worked for a year in a consultancy company where I tackled different problems like designing winches, designing industrial printers, something that I've never known before. And all of these experiences were really good in terms of understanding how these mechanical products work. So all of their intrinsicies and their problems. How do you design? How do you calculate? How do you make sure that something is not going to fall apart? So putting everything I've learned in university into work was really satisfying. However, when I reached the last year in the consultancy part, I also started having this connection with clients and understanding that in most of my previous jobs, I always shifted a little bit and tried to automate my processes. So if I wanted to design faster some parts that were recurring, I would automate actually the 3D modeling of it so that I would only need to change a couple of dimensions and the old model will go behind. So, and even automating like Excel spreadsheets to make my work easier. So I always, so I think myself as a little bit lazy because I always want to automate things to have less work. So by learning how to code and being in that field, I started learning also the power of data and how we can see that data can help in the most different companies and processes that we get. So when I changed to this consultancy role, I also started learning about machine learning, how we can teach machines. That's like solving a really big problem, and for me, understanding how everything works again. So it all ends up going there, understanding how we could teach some machine to learn just based on examples. It was fascinating as well to me. So I knew how to code already in MATLAB and in VBA, but it's always about you giving the instructions to the machine. And now you don't give the instructions to the machine, you just give them the examples and it learns by itself. And this was really fascinating to me. So I started learning about these. I started learning Python because it's the common language that's used in this field. And after 1 year, I set to change and to go into data science.
Amazing.
There, I think
yeah, go on, Karen.
Sorry, there I think I was really lucky because I applied to several companies and I received lots of answers saying that we are looking for a background that is on data science already or computer science, something that's already more specific. And I was coming with almost 8 years of experience in another field, so there was some challenges here in finding someone that would allow me to show what I already learned by myself, right? Yeah. So I was really lucky because this consultancy company I went to, the Closer Consulting, actually provided me a test, a challenge, so I could code at home and I could show already what I could do. So that was actually the blocker for this my career on data science, because it allowed me to show what I could do. It allowed me to enter their company, and then I could progress there and show effectively what I've learned, how I learn, how I pose my problems, how I solve my problems, and that brought me where I am today. So.
Amazing. Yeah, cool. Thanks for that. That's really, really interesting story. And I'm always really intrigued to hear how people arrive in the world of data, because, I think data, it won't be a surprise to people that it's a massively evolving field. And I think, where we were kind of 10, probably, even 5 years ago to a certain degree, data sort of seen as a separate entity in a business, a separate kind of technology vertical. And now, it definitely feels like it's attracting people from more of a diverse background and people from different walks of life and have done different things. And then they kind of arrive at data science. And the amount of conversations I have with people where they've done different, careers prior to getting into data science, but they land in data science and like, this is my passion. I absolutely love it. And, it's the area I want to stay in. But it's a very good point that, I have definitely had conversations with people where they've experienced quite a bit of resistance in the market. If they've come from a different background and they've maybe struggled to get that sort of initial foothold, into the world of data science. But fair play to you for, being proactive and sort of putting your money where your mouth is and sort of doing the technical test and sort of showing what you can do, I guess. But what I loved about what you just listening to you talk then and what you were saying about your background, I think the key thread that came out to me there was always about solving problems. And I guess that's true. I mean, there's obviously some similarities and quite a lot of differences, I'm sure, which we'll go on to talk about. But a thing that sort of strikes me about you is you're somebody that enjoys kind of solving a problem. And I think that's a really strong trait of a good data science professional, is someone that realizes what they're doing, how that impacts either a stakeholder or the wider business, or how it solves a problem. It's not just this piece of technical work I'm doing in isolation. That's really interesting to hear. But so have you found that transition since moving from mechanical engineering? Was it the right choice for you? Do you miss any part of mechanical engineering that you don't get to do in data science? Or, what are the sort of the pros and the cons for you of that move?
Yeah, so I think that for me it has been mostly positive, and I really love what I'm doing. I think that I found in data science a mix of what I was looking for, and specifically maybe in consulting, because in consulting we can be in a project from start to end. So you have to deal with business requirements at the beginning, and then you have to solve the problem, and then you have to still present it to your client, and so you have all of this pipeline that you are able to be inserted in. Whereas and this is something I like. So I like to be aware of the entire pipeline and understand how do you solve the entire problem, not just a part of it. And in mechanical engineering, what I was looking is that most companies are already split into sections where you take part of one of the sections, but not of the entire project. So maybe you are developing or designing in an internal team, and you don't have these stakeholders communication as you have in consultancy. So I wanted to have this entire pipeline as well, and I wanted to explore the coding part. So it was a really good match to me, and yeah, I don't regret anything at all. In terms of cons and pros, so I think that, as we were discussing, there are some cons regarding with acceptance from market. And so it's not that it is hard to change to data science, because it's such a hot topic right now that there is so much demand for data scientists that as long as you can prove that you know and that you can implement stuff, someone will probably get you. But there is always some resistance, and when you are evaluated faced in contrast with other candidates, if a candidate already has a background, companies assume by default that it already has more knowledge on that, which is not necessarily true, because it's hard to show on your profile how much you've learned by yourself, how much that it's not backed by a university degree or by some professional experience, but that you can be doing by yourself and exploring by yourself. I think that one way you can do that, it's in your CV, trying to have like a small portfolio of your own projects. Try to focus on that, because and remove the focus on your past experience. And so that's what I had to do. So usually your past experience is the first thing you see on your resume. And I had to do the other way around. I had to put it down and actually bring up some personal projects I was trying to do in data science to show up like, yeah, I'm trying to do this. And then, as I said, having a challenge that evaluates me was a really absolute crucial point, because I don't think it would have been so easy to change if any company would accept to see how much I already knew. So this is really important, and I think that companies should look more into this, because it's not only about your background; it's about what you are willing to do for your future. And if someone gives you a task, even if you don't know, how much could you learn in that amount of time to make it to solve it, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a great point, because it is a question also I get asked quite often by people that are looking to get into the world of data science from another career, and they always ask, well, what can I do to improve my chances? How can I kind of make myself more attractive? And I always say, kind of echoing what you said there, that unfortunately, against another candidate that's got demonstrable experience of the market and has sort of proven they've been in that kind of environment and they can show what they're capable of, you are going to be an element of a risk, compared to another candidate that's got that tried and tested background. So anything you can do to mitigate that risk and show people, like I said, and I'm a big believer in people being able to demonstrate through pet projects and portfolios and things like that, because I think it's something as from a client perspective, I get asked for quite often, not only necessarily from this, conversation point about how do you get into data science, but just, in terms of, it's generally a hallmark of a good candidate if they've done a bit of work in the background, they've got their own pet projects, they've done their own kind of portfolio. It shows that it's less of a job, I guess, and more of a passion. If they're doing some work outside the office and they've got a bit of, interest in tinkering with new technologies and things like that. So that's a bit of overarching advice I'd give to any candidate, to be honest, trying to stand apart and, be a bit more attractive for selection. But I think certainly in this instance, it's absolutely key, isn't it? If, somebody hasn't got that experience on their CV, they need to be able to show what they do know. But I think it's a great point you make about, just because, somebody's done something, from here to here, doesn't mean that's what they want to do from here to here. It's actually about their attitude and their outlook from this point. So you've got to convince people that as much as you've done this in the past, your real passion now lies in data science, and you've got to be able to explain to people why, what is that kind of passion for you, and why is it going to be, a really rewarding career, and why are you going to be the person that goes the extra mile, in that role. So yeah, I think it's a really good point to mention. I mean, is there any, from somebody that's successfully made that transition, from another industry into data science, is there any other advice, you could share with somebody that's possibly looking to go on the same journey and possibly sort of cross-train into a different industry? Any sort of tips and tricks?
Yeah, so I think that there are also two big markets in terms of data science companies. So I'm in consultancy, and this was more tailored for me specifically because I could leverage my experience on another sector. So I could come in and say, even not having a lot of experience in data science, only personal experience, I can bring to the table stuff like experience and how to deal with stakeholders, how to prioritize tasks and lead teams, for example. So I could bring already something into the table, not related with data science, but that could also be useful. So I think that consultancy, actually, it's easier for you to get in than going straight to a more focused company where you want to do some research, because these companies are the ones that lie a lot in want a lot these backgrounds, this knowledge that you in university studied the algorithms, that you had something focused on the research. So going into consultancy, I think it was really helpful for me because I could leverage the experience and the maturity.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic point, because that in consultancies as well, I guess there's a need to be technically competent and effective, but it's as much about actually being quite a well-rounded individual, isn't it, that can do the stakeholder engagement piece, has good soft skills, has good communication skills. And very often, for consulting clients we've worked with, they would often take a gamble on a bright numerate individual that hasn't had a huge amount of commercial experience, but they've got very strong soft skills, very strong other strings to their bow, I guess, that they can kind of bring to the table. And I suppose for you, somebody that's brought 8 years of experience in another domain, clearly you've crafted a lot of experience outside of the data science vertical, like you said, that you can build upon, that it makes you a very attractive, very quality consultant, I guess, outside of pure data science alone. So I think that's a really good point. Sort of picking the company that's actually going to be interested in your in your background, that could be a bit of a stepping stone into maybe more data science focused business. So okay. I mean, I guess mechanical engineering into data science in many ways, it's obviously on the surface a very different industry, but I guess in a lot of other ways there's quite a few similarities there, insofar as you have to be clearly quite a numerate person, and I've got a friend actually who's an aerodynamicist for Aston Martin. He sort of works in CFD, computational fluid dynamics, and he actually was talking to me the other day about Python, and I was like, what, you're using Python in your job? Because I was telling him what I recruit for, and he's like, yeah, I use it all the time. So obviously in certain areas of engineering, you probably have to have that kind of mindset already and be sort of familiar with code. But do you feel there's certain industries that that do lend themselves better, from what you've seen so far, to entering into a world of data science particularly?
Yeah, so as we were saying, backgrounds that are analytical backgrounds have a big advantage into coming into this field, because understanding the algorithms is all about algebra and calculations. So I think that engineers on like a broad spectrum of engineers. Anyone can come into data science. So, and I can give you an example. So at Closer, we had engineers from so many different fields. We had civil engineers, mechanical, biomedical, electrical, chemistry. So any field actually. And this is only possible because on the roots of engineering, so on your first 2 or 3 years of engineering degree, you only learn maths. So when you want to do the transition into data science, it's all about maths and it's easier for you. I think that also people that come from finance and economics also find it easier as well, because they have dealt with some of the algorithms that are used in data science. For example, time series algorithms. They have already studied them, and it's already not, I wouldn't say halfway known, because we have so many different subjects in data science, but it's a really big chunk of data science nowadays. It's time series because of all of the IoT and real-time data. So they also lend very well to coming into data science and to learn the algorithms, the specific algorithms.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And I guess really, you are, Tiago, quite a shining example of, I'm not going to give you a big head by saying this, but you're quite a shining example of just what you can achieve in a relatively short space of time by, cross-training into another industry and really taking to it and showing what you're capable of, because, you're already in the position of a data science manager, only, I guess, a couple of years into your sort of dedicated data science career. So would you say there's been any kind of particular characteristics or attributes or just things that you feel you've done well that have allowed you to experience quite an accelerated career progression in this industry?
Yeah, so I'm really curious, and when I have a problem, and even if someone tells me you can solve it this way, I'll just go and look for other ways, maybe better ways if possible, to solve the same problem. And by doing this, I ended up by learning about a lot of the different algorithms out there without actually needing to implement them. So I'll read so much, so papers, blogs, and so on about data algorithms that I was really at ease to discuss the implementation of them and the pros and cons, the constraints of all of these algorithms. This allowed me to jump into a more senior position where I can go to a client with the experience I had already before, where I can go to a client and discuss a proposal and discuss why we are going to use this algorithm and why this approach. And people, so because I've read so much about it, and I know so much about it because of I've read it, I can convince people of what I'm doing, what I'm saying. Like I have the arguments to convince the people of this. So it lends a lot of help, like to grow in the consultancy area. It's how you can pass your message and how well are you prepared if someone throws at you a constraint or a problem. How well are you prepared to take it in and adjust and give a new approach? So if you tell me you have that problem, I can go, instead of going route A, I can go route B, and we solve the problem anyway, because you have in your arsenal of solutions, you have a really big arsenal and you can use them. So I think that was a key factor for my progression in data science. It's reading, learning, knowing this stuff very well, so that I can discuss with anyone, and I can go everywhere and I can discuss any algorithm, why it's done. And even if I don't know the algorithm, since I go deep and I learn how the algorithms work inside, I can extrapolate also well to other algorithms. So what probably that algorithm is doing. And even if I'm not 100% sure or 100% correct, it usually lies around that, because there isn't usually that disruptive change in the way algorithms tackle the same kind of problems. And if there was a hype on the news about that, and I've read about it. So that's a really big factor in, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like that answer, because
I just turned the light on.
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah. Then there was light. There we go. There we go. Yeah, no, I was just saying I really like that answer, because it's, you're not saying, right, well, to be successful in data science, you've got to have 2 years commercial computer vision experience. It's not, you're not sort of looking at it from a skills point of view, although I guess it is a skill to ensure that you're constantly reading up on things. But to me, that's more like an attitude, isn't it? That's more like, being, like, say, inquisitive, and having a tenacious attitude to find multiple solutions to the same problem. And yeah, I really like the point that, I'm a firm believer that, to have confidence in anything in life, I was watching a Michael Jordan documentary the other day. It's really good, actually, if you haven't seen it, The Last Dance on Netflix. And it's basically just talking about, why he is as good as he is and why he is so confident. And I guess it's true for lots of sports people, that success doesn't happen by accident. It's just about pure preparation and, just hard work in the background, and just evaluating all these different options. So when they get into that situation where, they need to be confident, they know they've done all the background work, they know they've done everything they need to. So it just almost comes second nature. And I guess it's a similar thing, really. Like, if you've evaluated every single angle that it could possibly be, and you've gone away, you've done the hard work, and you've prepared for it, I think confidence comes from great preparation. And definitely. Yeah, I think it's a really cool point.
And another point, it's trying to put yourself in your client's shoes. So you are solving a problem, and your client have this problem. What are the questions that is likely to do? So if you were the client, what would you like to see solved, and how do you like to see it solved? So you can prepare for the questions by doing this exercise. And I always had, like, with my brother, I always had, like, these kind of discussions where one would take a stand and the other the opposite stand, even if we don't believe it, just to be arguing and actually develop these arguing skills. And it's really good on this exercise of putting yourself on the client's shoes, because it's just, even if you don't believe that that's what the client would need, why it doesn't need it. So put yourself in his shoes, solve his problem from his side, and then you can put your problem better for him. So,
interesting. Yeah, me and my brother have been doing that for years, but obviously I didn't realize we were preparing to be data scientists. But no, that's a really good point. And I think it's going back to your point you were making earlier on about just being a good problem solver, isn't it? And actually just looking at it through your eyes of your customer. And I guess I can really extrapolate that out into, what we do. I mean, obviously we recruit for data scientists, but the nature of the job in terms of what we do on a daily basis obviously is quite far away from the responsibilities of a data scientist. But I still see what I do very much so as my value to the market is innately, correlates to the problems I can solve for people.
Yeah.
And, if you look at it through your customer's eyes of, right, does a customer really want a CV from me? Do they just want a piece of paper? Or do they want me to help them, save them time in their day? What's the value really that they want from my service? And I think if you can look at most things in life through the eyes of the person that you're supposedly serving, you should be able to come up with a much better way to serve them. So okay, cool. And I guess just I'm quite curious actually, in the sort of couple of years that you've been in this area, how do you feel the kind of landscape is looking within data science and machine learning and AI now? Is there what's sort of the one area that you're really excited by sort of for the future in data science and AI? Is there anything that sort of springs to mind?
Yeah, so I think there are nowadays there are 3 major areas that have lots of development and a real big hypes around it. So NLP, so natural language processing, the image processing and reinforcement learning. So this one is still a bit behind, but I think that it's probably the one that will have the most growth in the future, because reinforcement learning, it's about how to make decisions to solve problems. It's about how we humans learn and learn to make decisions. And once we can tune that up and have it really, really good, you can solve most of the problems by introducing evaluation on your decision. So if this was a good decision, you get a reward. If it was a bad decision, you get a penalization. So once you can translate your problems into a decision that a human would make, I think this field will have a really big expense. And we've seen, I think, in the news that there have been several news about reinforcement learning with DeepMind, with the AlphaGo, with also with Fast AI, I think, with the computer games, that they are beating the best teams and the best professionals out there by using this kind of algorithms. So I'm really excited about this reinforcement learning. I think that once we can teach a machine on how to make decisions, and we can transfer also its knowledge. So nowadays, one of the biggest problems is that we teach a machine how to make decision on a really small scope. So you have this problem and you are learning to make a decision on specifically this problem, and it's hard to transfer this knowledge to another task, to another problem. But once we get it, then you can have like just a couple of algorithms that can solve most of your problems, because it's about making a decision, and it may take some time for it to be very tuned, because it needs to try and fail, just like humans try and fail to learn. But it will learn way faster than a human, because it can try faster and can fail faster, and it doesn't have the same disadvantages. Or if it's in a controlled environment, you are not prejudicing anyone while it's in the controlled environment. So you can test, you can fail as much as you want, because you are not giving anything bad to the world. And this will eventually take to the other part that's like I think very exciting for the future, that it's talked in AI's conferences and so on. That's like the singularity moment, where an AI can have more intelligence than a human. That's when, so it's called the singularity. And these kind of algorithms where you can make decisions and teach a program to make a computer to make decisions will be the basis of this kind of singularity, because it's where computers will start to make decisions by themselves. It's not someone saying you are doing this because it's good. It's going to say from the past, this is good, this is bad. Now you decide to the future. So this is exciting, and it's a bit daunting as well, because we all seen the movies like Terminator and so on, and I believe that most of people that works in AI and machine learning are excited and are daunted about this subject. So we don't know what will happen. It is exciting to be working in that, in terms that you know that you are building the future, because it's inevitable. But it's also daunting, because if it all goes wrong, what will happen to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? How like as humans, we always sort of prophesize what's going to happen in the future. Like, you know, you look at these films like the Terminator or whatever, but you just look, even if you look at like Back to the Future 2 as an example, you know, like I was watching this video on YouTube the other day about stuff that's actually come true from Back to the Future 2. And it's like we sort of put a flag in the sand about what the future is going to look like. And then we just slowly sort of start working towards that.
We actually, it drives us to that future, right? Because we said that we want something, and then we strive to go there, and maybe we are closing some doors in the way just because we are focused on that exact future.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm just amazed at how it seems like, when we watch any futuristic program now, you kind of think like, well, that is clearly what we're trying to all work towards, if that's what we're envisioning as the future. And I totally agree with you. I mean, it absolutely blows my mind when I really try and think about, the true differences between artificial intelligence and I guess, yeah, your point is, obviously machines can think a lot quicker and process a lot of data a lot quicker. But I guess this is where I see the big differentiation between computational power and actually artificial intelligence. What is true intelligence. And I was having a conversation last week actually with Manish Patel on the last episode of the podcast, and we're talking about sort of multimodal machine learning and multimodality structures. And I at university, I did biopsychology, and the part that I was really, really interested in is actually about how the brain learns from experience, and how, and this again is a real fascination for me about how humans, we learn as sort of biological entities, where we have an external stimulus, something then happens internally within our brain. We get long-term potentiation happening at the synapse in the cell, and then something happens, and then we've got a new perspective, we've created a memory. And how digital computers, obviously they have the ability to form memories, but we've got a distinct advantage that we can do it in context with our surroundings. Everything's going on around us, but it's about how do you teach a machine to have context, like you said. And we're very good at sort of solving issues in one niche vertical with one algorithm that can solve one problem, but then how does that relate to solving the next problem and the next problem? And like you said, if we can work that out, then the sort of future for AI is just, it's just bonkers, isn't it? What's possible, and kind of how it all works. So it does kind of really blow my mind, and it's really, like you say, really exciting, but also genuinely really, really daunting at the same time. And just on this note, before we finish, I was watching a video on Facebook the other day about Deepfakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, you watch it, it's just a bit of fun, don't you, about seeing dead celebrities talking and things like that. And then you think, actually, like the potential that has in a good and a bad way, really, for being able to watch a video on somebody, because we just believe what we see, don't we, as humans? We innately believe what we see. And technology is getting to the point now where it's genuinely really difficult to discern the difference between reality and, if you think about the Trumps of this world that are talking about fake news and, manipulating the technology to communicate with people in a certain way, it's really quite scary, isn't it? Like what could happen if the wrong technology falls into the wrong hands?
One of the big fields on artificial intelligence nowadays is exactly distinguish what is a deep fake or not. So because there are already such good algorithms to create these fakes that as humans are losing the perception whether this is fake or reality. But computers can still find it, because when we look at an image, and this goes again to a broad spectrum, broad vision. When you look at an image, you see a person and you see like maybe hair, nose, eyes, and so on. The computer sees every pixel. And because of that, it can distinguish when a fake is done, that it didn't mimic all of the pixels correctly.
Okay.
But for us, it's the same, because if it's like one pixel wrong or another wrong on the side wrong, we cannot distinguish. We don't have the resolution to do that.
Yeah.
So nowadays one of the fields that has a lot of hype also, it's this understanding what is fake and what is reality, and I think it will be very important. So I'm not sure if you saw on that Facebook video that you were mentioning, they put like Obama talking without being Obama, and this can have really big repercussions. Imagine that someone leaks a video of Trump now saying that he's going to launch nukes to Russia.
Exactly.
So
that was my exact scenario. I was envisioning in my mind of someone watching a video of that and it's like, oh my god, it just started World War III, and it's
And of course that we are talking about an extreme, and there will be lots of security measures to ensure that nothing wrong happens. But when you go to smaller things, imagine one person that leads a company, and now you have someone making a statement by this person. And it can just plummet or rise your company value in a moment, and you in the stock market you can be earning a lot of money.
100%.
So there are smaller things that doesn't impact the world by itself, and where people can take a lot of advantage. So it is a really tricky subject.
Yeah, totally. That's I mean, the two examples you made there, I totally agree with. I mean, the first one I was thinking of is just how easily it could be for something to escalate. You know, when you're watching the video, how like, and I'm glad obviously there's these parameters in place where you can sort of machine can detect whether it's a deep fake or not pretty quickly. But you know, like say to the naked eye, when you're watching something, you know, you easily take them the wrong way. But yeah, I was also thinking about the ramifications for, you know, kind of social influencers and things, and just advertising as well. Like I say, having like David Beckham, you know, advertising something for 5 seconds, you know, you can pay him a couple of $100,000, or you can just do it with a deep fake, you know, and then you got pretty much the same effect, haven't you, that you needed to. So
of course, then you'll have like people from David Beckham suing you because his image was used without his consent and so on. But if you do it without anyone knowing that it's you, then you are
exactly, yeah. But it's almost the same ramifications for fake news. I mean, they don't really exist, do they? It's really difficult to police, and then when you do police it, it's like, well, sorry, I thought that was, you know, true or whatever. So it's you know, it's really difficult, isn't it, to think about. But you like to think, you know, with all these things we're creating, we're putting the sort of the blockers in place at the same time to control it, but you never know, do you?
Yeah, it's really hard. But I think that's something that definitely companies and the companies that do a lot of research on this area needs to concern, and probably there will be some algorithms that will come out and just can be used by everyone, just to be sure that what you are seeing. It's actually a business. So imagine that you have an algorithm that can rate if a content is true or fake. You can just have a stamp saying that this content was rated with this algorithm, and because of that, you know that it's true. So it's actually a whole new business.
yeah, absolutely. That's it. I mean, the possibilities are literally endless, aren't they, in terms of what AI is going to do for us? You know, I guess good and bad, but hopefully more good than bad. But okay, fantastic. Well, look, it's been fascinating talking to you, Tiago. Really enjoyed our chat, and as always, we kind of deviate a little bit off path towards the end. But I guess I'd like to end as I end all my podcasts with stealing a question which I heard. Well, I read a book called "If I Could Ask You One Thing" by a guy called Rich Reed, where he just went around a load of famous celebrities and asked very successful people for their one favorite bit of advice in the world. And it's a good book, actually. If you haven't read it, it's quite a short read, but quite good. Yeah, so I guess in the same breath, I'd like to ask: is there a particular piece of advice, or your favorite piece of advice that you'd like to pass on as your parting words to your fellow man and lady?
Yeah, sure. So, and I think that I've touched it already, and it's probably based a lot in what I've heard from Steve Jobs' speech when he got the Stanford degree, that it's like, don't settle, keep on learning, like just keep learning, because knowledge is a lot of power. Knowing how to do stuff and how to know if it's true or fake, for example, it's very important, and it's what will drive your career forward. It's what will enable you not to stop in time and continue forward. Keep on learning, diversify your knowledge, and not only on your sector, go broader as well, and yeah, don't stop.
Great advice. God bless Steve Jobs. He had a few good quotes, didn't he?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, Tiago, look, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, best of luck with the rest of your career. Thanks for sharing all the great advice and tips. And I look forward to following your progress eagerly in the future.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
No worries at all. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.